You're listening to the Dank Swamp Rebellion and the return of RattlesnakeDre Part 3.
There's one other story. There is a treasure that's linked to the Alamo. Supposedly, the guys that were there, that's all those soldiers, anytime you have an army, you don't really connect treasure to it, but those guys were getting like top pay. Like those are the big oil field workers of the day. So if you joined the army, you were usually paid a lot. The Civil War, it wasn't as much, but before, when you were a hired hand to fight, you were like these were the professional athletes of their day. So these guys were getting paid a lot of money to go and be pirates or soldiers. So whoever the general was usually had a chest that he would pay his men, because you can't pay them for 3 or 4 months. These guys are murderers. That's what they do for a living. They'll take their money and they'll haul ass.
Right.
So you have to think, anytime there's two armies that fought, there was a lot of money that was left behind, lost, or hidden before or after that battle. Because sometimes it was so much they couldn't take it away. And that's why there's still treasure that's being found even to today in 2021.
Well, I'm sure when there was a battle also that whatever was left over from the losing side, they just raped the shit out of that.
They looted everything.
You know?
Just like Kyle said for that hurricane that passed over Grand Isle, that big hotel. As soon as the pirates knew, like, they had a hotel with a bunch of rich people, they were just literally pulling the rings off their fingers.
Right.
One last thing to show you. And here's another really cool piece of pottery.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why I got that in there. I guess I just thought it was cool. It's got a cool design.
That looks like my mama's.
Yeah.
Her plate, her Sunday dinnerware.
There it is. Okay, so this is something I dug up on the same Boogie property that his mom, his brother, definitely lived on. Jim Boogie was definitely on that property. So I found this little object, and it's hand carved, and it's a piece of black brass. That's what somebody had notified me on Facebook and said.
Black brass.
I don't know the definition, or he had just mentioned, and he said it's the way they made brass before they perfected it.
Okay.
Before they took the impurities out, probably.
Right. So it's probably a lot older than the Civil War, maybe closer to 200 years ago. That's when Jim Bowie and Jean Lafitte were active. I think Jean Lafitte was like 1800s to 1814. So I found this, and this is a incredibly crazy object. It's hand carved. When you just look at it, you can tell it has extreme age to it, and it's actually kind of spooky.
What the fuck is that?
And I had no idea what it was. And I put it on Facebook, and I didn't get an answer for a long time. And what it is, it's a powder flask. It's the tip to a powder flask for a gun.
It has a face on it.
One of the soldiers or pirates carved a face on it.
Shit.
Because it hung by his side.
Feel how heavy it is. Again, feel how heavy it is.
And out of all the objects that I found, that one has the craziest feel to it.
Dude, I got oh my God, bro.
Because when you look at that face, you know that whoever that person was took time to carve that.
It almost has that likeness of a bird. It almost looks Aztec too, and the features of it, it's amazing.
And that's why I think it might be Spanish.
Yeah, and made its way here. That could be, because it looks very like Mayan, type artwork on that.
That's where all the pirates were. That's where Jean Lafitte. That's where the Atocha. That's where they got all. I'm gonna dip into the Atocha later. I don't know if you ever heard about that. That's the most amazing story you're ever gonna hear.
You hear that, Kyle? The most amazing story ever heard coming up.
Hope you're doing your homework, brother. So
Tyler is so
the face is intriguing, right?
It is. It's amazing.
It's fucking crazy, brother. Like this is some cool shit. Like it feels like this jutting out part's the nose. That's the nose,
right?
You would think that's the mouth, but it's actually the nose, because you could see where the lip line is underneath it, and it goes across way far back,
like an evil smile.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is.
But I agree with you. It has like an Aztec look to it, which I never even thought about that, but it's kind of making sense now. Yeah. Because this is from the period. Let me
snap a picture of that.
Well, I'm actually gonna leave all this here, that way y'all can get some good pictures, and I'll just grab it next time.
Yeah, perfect.
This is so badass.
This is probably the only thing that I know, like I'm 90% sure that was probably owned by a pirate.
It had to be.
And the one coin that I have.
It had to be, dude. Why else would it exist right now here? You know what I mean? Like, how would you have gotten that other than buying it from
I'm so
someone,
grateful that the forces of nature, literally, and I'm not trying to make light of any of this. I'm saying that I'm really grateful that the forces of nature picked you in order to find some of these things, man, because there's no way that our paths would have ever crossed with it if not. Right.
Or if Tyler wouldn't have lived down my street when we were little.
And you wouldn't have caught a chicken in his yard.
That's right.
That's
a true story.
That's some super crazy shit, man.
So yeah, this is probably one of the crazier things that I'm still not even 100% sure if that's what it is. I know it's like super old. I know the property I found it on. I know the history. But that's super creepy.
It is.
I love it.
And like, you really nailed it with the Aztec features, but you could see, like, whenever you hold it up to light, you could see the individual scrapings and carvings of each stroke he would have
absolutely
took.
Nothing is completely rounded, so you can see each little line of whatever tool, almost like you would with a piece of clay that's being modeled. Super neat, super cool.
And that for sure is all hand hammered.
Yeah,
without a doubt, that is not machined.
You could tell. Absolutely.
So, being Aztec, that's probably what the pirates saw as they were coming up, because South America had a bunch of silver mines, and that's probably what they saw on a day-to-day basis. You know, so they just brought that over when they made their way to Louisiana. Or maybe he had this while he was on the ship in South America.
And was like anybody else that was just inspired by the place that they went and thought that was the coolest place ever.
So a small bit of Aztec culture actually made it all the way to my hand. Crazy.
That's some weird shit, man.
To South Louisiana, to Cajun country.
It's literally in the DSR studio.
And it's sitting in my studio right now, y'all.
I hope it's a long time before somebody else brings any pirate shit in here.
I'm pretty sure you're safe to
I'm pretty sure we're good.
If they do, I want to have a couple beers with them.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We'll make it happen. Or look, maybe someone took this and was inspired by an exact piece like this and made a replica of it, like 10 years ago, and that's what you found.
That's not what happened.
You can look at certain things and tell they're replicas and not this.
No. Well, you can get your biology buddy. I'll bring him and show him the different levels of dirt. Like, I'm a moron. I'm a caveman. I know how to find cool shit. I mean, Kyle's really good with his knowledge and remembering things, which, it comes in handy whenever, But I noticed the different levels that I'd find these. I'd find these at 3 inches. Mm-hmm. I found the coin at about 6 inches, and then I found this at over a foot.
And Tozan will be able to tell you why.
Yeah, because the different, I guess it's like the silt that would wash over, because Bayou Lafourche had made a natural levee at one time, but it was right along the bayou. Right. And if you drive along LA1 or 308, there is some spots you'll see, like, why is there a giant hill on the bayou side? Mm-hmm. That's the natural levee from hundreds of years ago, because it would overspill every year and build up silt.
I mean, if you go down like Valentine area, a lot of that's still built up pretty heavy on the bayou sides, and sucks the fish off of there.
Cool tip for anybody that wants to treasure hunt: if you find those, I go dig there, because sometimes you could find bottles. Yeah, because that's not disturbed. And a lot of people used to throw
from that area. I actually have an old medicine bottle. I don't know how old it is, but it was packed full of dirt. It looks similar to the one you gave, it's just a little longer. Go figure, huh?
Yeah, that's crazy.
You shorted me, man. But yeah, dude, super cool. Thank you so much for bringing this stuff in. And I bought a replica one like this of this Spanish doubloon when I was at the Pirate Museum.
Yeah,
I bought a fake, and you can tell it was a fake because it just. And I told my wife, she goes, how can you tell? And I said, because real silver, solid silver, just has a different feel, and it doesn't have that weird glossy tinge to it that when they have that copper alloy or whatever they put in it.
Mm-hmm. Silver and gold are very conductive. So they hold heat or they hold cold.
Yeah.
So you could feel, like when you pick up a silver coin to a regular coin, you could feel it's actually a couple of degrees colder. And a good way to tell if something's silver, if you grab this coin and you take a little cube of ice, the heat from your hand will go straight through the coin and it'll just melt straight through the ice at it's a little bit less than normal. Like you're like, oh, this is not supposed to happen. And that's just a weird way that somebody had mentioned to me once. And it works because I've tried it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, like gold is used in your really high-end electronics because it's super good for conductive for electricity too. And the only reason why I know that is because guitar pickups and the electronics into that stuff. But yeah, high-end stuff is all gold when it comes to electronics.
Like cell phones too, I think.
Yeah. Depending on, of course, what kind you got. But yes, it's pretty nutty how all this shit kind of wraps around into itself like that. Like that microphone that's sitting right in front of us right now probably has gold conductors in it.
You know what's even crazier? That gold might have been processed from gold coins from 100 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
So you literally could have a piece of history sitting right in front of your mustache.
Just like the gold ring I have on my hand was probably melted down at one time. Chances are it being dug out of the ground and, manufactured might be 50-50 because they melt. They have signs all over the place. We buy gold.
Yeah.
They're not stashing that. They're melting it down and selling it.
All right, well, welcome back to the Grove on My Ear Hour of Power, they call that. Well, we're here with old RattlesnakeDre. He's back. He went on an expedition to the Sahara Desert. He found the Golden Scepter of Ra.
What? Where was that?
Down south Chauvin somewhere.
I keep it in my backyard against the fence.
So yeah, man. Once again, I'm gonna revisit it a little earlier when we were talking, but thank you so much for the artifacts you brought in. Dude, I truly feel blessed. You have no idea how touched I am that you were able to share this with us, and that we're gonna be able to share it with other people. And that's one thing that man, you don't realize how much you inspired. And I can speak for Tyler on this one, both of us, when it comes to tradition of Cajun culture and just having a rebirth of that, where we didn't appreciate it at one time, but now we do, and we're finding more and more people that do. It all ties in with the Civil War era. Just realizing that that's a real piece of history. And that it's also something that is pretty much part of who we are, And
it's really cool digging up stuff and even finding stuff laying on top of the ground. I go in some of these cane fields and some of these things are laying straight on top of the ground, like that little heel plate I gave you. The reason why it's damaged is because a plow hit it. So the longer I wait, or the longer anybody waits to pull these things out of these fields, eventually they're going to be,
to shit.
Just demolished.
Because sometimes I'll find those Civil War bullets and they're cut in half. It looks like with a knife, but it's the plow that hits it and just tears it. It's made of lead, so.
And how many years of that being fucking plowed?
It'll be nothing. Damn. So that's why I got to try and get. That's why I stopped on the way to the podcast. I did stop for an hour and went and walk a couple fields just because I was like, man, it'd be really cool to find something crazy and better bring it in.
The day of.
Yeah, I found this about an hour ago, right before the sunset. But we were going over some of the new things I've been doing, some of the new leads I have. I did want to mention I have a very good friend of mine has some property in Mississippi, and it's like hundreds of acres. And on the property, we were walking, and I noticed, I don't know if I just have an eye for it now, but there was almost like a trail, and I'm like, this is a beaten trail. Like, they say a beaten trail, it's because it's been walked on for so long. And I could definitely tell, like, this is like either an old cattle trail or a horse trail. So we're following it, and you look down into a ravine, and he's like, because we were walking to an area, he wanted to show me something. Well, we get there, it's like a 1920s car in the middle of the woods.
Just chilling.
Just sitting there. I have a picture on my Facebook somewhere. But I'm like, dude, how did this get here? Because they were trees that were like, the size of 5-gallon buckets all around it. So it's not like you just drove it in there, but it's been there since the 1920s. It's 100 years ago somebody drove it.
Those trees were saplings back then, right? Not even existent.
Drove it in there for the very last time. But what's really cool is my first ever Civil War artifact I dug right next to that car. So, I mean, there's a 50-year difference, but was that person's dad, family member, and what it was a buckle. And it wasn't a buckle for your pants. It was like one that went around your blanket.
Okay.
Because I posted it on Facebook, and they,
Yeah, they had a buckle that it was almost like a belt strap or just a piece of cloth. And you'd roll up your stuff and strap it in that.
Right. And then you attach it to your back and
make it easy for transport.
But that's really cool, and it's still sitting out there. The craziest thing is when I posted that car, whatever it is, it's a rare vehicle. It looks awesome. It looks like straight out of the gangster movies that they used to have.
Great Gatsby looking shit.
Yeah, and it's some rare vehicle, and one of the doors has come completely off, and it was laying in the ground. And on the Facebook comments, if you go on my Facebook and look it up, there's a guy on there offering me like money for it just for the door, because it's the original doors to the car, and they were like, where is it? So my buddy wants to go and take it out of there, but I don't see a way of doing that. Like, you'd have to clear cut, because we have to like hike down into there.
What if I knew a guy with a helicopter?
That might work.
I actually do.
But that's something really cool, and we've actually found a bunch of stuff on that same property.
Shout out to Panther Helicopters in Lafitte, Louisiana.
We're going to get a car. The last thing I wanted to bring up, one of the last projects I went on, recently, a friend of mine, he follows me on Facebook. He's actually, probably a couple levels above me in treasure hunting. He's from Virginia. So he finds, a ton of colonial stuff. And actually, one of his best friends wrote a book and signed it for me, sent it to me. I have it at my house. But when he came to give it to me, he showed up at my house. I never met him before. And my wife's like, you need to stop inviting strangers that you've never met
Just
before.
let these transients from all over the country.
Like, she would say, like, where you met him? I was like, oh, he's my friend on Facebook. And you gave him our address? I was like, no, he's fine.
Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah, so the guy shows up to my house, and he's like, oh, man, Rattlesnake Dre, I love your show, blah, blah, blah. This is some of the stuff I found. I'm like, dude, why are you even here? You make me feel like shit. Look at all the stuff you find. Because he actually has the protective little band for a sword.
Yeah.
From a French sword from like the 1700s.
Yeah, like the little gauntlet part thing that comes like, wow,
shit.
That's amazing.
That was like one of the last things he found.
Yeah, you should have punched him in the face and stole it.
Yeah. Well, he's huge. He's a big old boy. So I was like, oh shit.
That's the original brass knuckles.
Yeah. I think that's what they use it for. That, not to get the sword across.
His wife's like, you gave Bird Dog my number?
That's so they couldn't cut your hand. Because that's your exposed part of your body.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, he shows up at my house, and he's a pilot down here in Fouchon. So he shows up, gives me the book, checks out the relic room. We share a couple stories, and then he's like, you want to go fly in my plane? And I'm like, oh, sure. So I walk out of the relic room into my kitchen, tell my old lady, hey, we're going to go fly in his plane. I'll be right back. She goes, oh, okay. So I kissed her, and we rolled out. Now, fast forward to the end of the story. When I got home, she's like, don't you ever just walk up and say, I'm getting in a plane with a strange guy that you just met an hour ago. She's like, I didn't know if he was stealing you, or maybe he was a cocaine dealer, or...
You're a mule now, baby.
Yeah.
It's such a weird plot twist. Rattlesnake Dre, the coke mule.
Yeah. So now she just wants kind of credentials, like, okay, what's his last name? Blah, blah, blah. But,
I would like to see his 23andMe results,
that's it. So anyway, this guy, he's well-versed in metal detecting, treasure hunting. So we jump in the plane, and we're sharing a couple stories. I have a headset on where I could hear him just like we're talking now. And he's like, I want to show you something. So the hotel that Kyle talked about on his previous podcast, we flew over because he told me that part of the island has washed away, and there's remnants of that building still there, and you could see like the base of it and some pilings.
Yeah.
And he's like, guaranteed there's stuff still there. He's like, there's no way that hotel full of 200 plus people, all the riches of New Orleans, you know, was lost that day. They all died basically. So that stuff got scattered. So of course pirates went pick through it, but a lot of that got lost. So our next adventure is to figure out how to get a boat there. The only problem is there's so many old structures and old oil field from like the early 1900s. So, but that's one of the planned adventures. If we can get there, that would be.
Sorry, my head just went to an airboat helicopter.
Let Elon Musk make that. That's the next Tesla.
Heliboat. So whenever it goes into the air,
check out my heliboat. You heard me?
it just goes like the fucking Slave One from Mandalorian and just pops up and flies that way, right?
That'd be pretty badass.
You ever seen the little airboats with like the little triangle? Like, you know, the guys that go and jump off the cliffs? They make little airboats that have that, so you could just fly out of the water. And
Oh, man.
That's ridiculous.
you could put that on the back of your bus.
Can we tour in that?
I think so.
Yeah, you can.
I'll drive it.
I'm just going to stay ripped in the bus.
I'll be in the crow's nest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be tight. Dude, that's super cool, though. That's
Yeah,
you
there's
plotting out your
Make
treasure
sure
map.
that when you do that, we want to go with you.
Okay.
We just want to go I just want to go for the experience, dude. I just want to go out there with you.
Yeah, for sure, man.
It's been a long time in the making, but we got to do that.
I have a couple really cool spots that I could take you.
I'll write you another song.
That'll work. Deal.
Song as currency? Damn, man, we really are living it up.
Yeah, anarchist. There we go.
So, to give the listeners another aspect on treasure hunting, a lot of people think that all through these years, since probably the early 1900s, people have been digging up gold and silver. There's an endless supply. I was listening to a podcast recently. I have no idea if this is correct or not. I'm not Kyle. I don't know, the specifics. But I did hear that, maybe you can Google it, I don't know, that there's around $7 trillion worth of gold that was sunk or lost in our world's oceans. So 7 trillion.
I can believe that.
Not billion, not million, but trillion.
That's a pretty nice deficit.
Well, the numbers make sense to me because in 1 year, I know one treasure hunter that found $50 million worth of treasure off of one wreck. That
He needs to stop. That's going.
50 million.
Holy shit.
50 million. But the problem is, and I'm going to get to that story, there's one ring that came off of that one shipwreck, and the significance behind the ring is it's a gold ring, it's an emerald ring, but it was meant for the Pope, and it had the ashes of a saint put underneath the emerald in the ring. And there's
shit.
record. You can
That's
go look at the records.
scary. That's creepy,
That's
dude.
a haunted ass ring.
Right. And it was lost for 300 years under the ocean and then found again. So
You
imagine
put on the ring and it automatically starts playing with your bird.
This one's too old. Never mind.
A 300-year-old ring? Get me one that's about 14.
Well, that's like, yeah, dude, that's like getting Captain Planet have those cool rings. Maybe, just maybe, have something to do with it. But, dude, that's fucking nutty, man. Like, the ashes of a saint were buried between the facet that holds the fucking jewel.
and the emerald.
And I understand it's not that you're doing it to get rich, but it sure wouldn't fucking hurt.
No.
Well, if it was Saint Francis, wasn't he the one for if you lose something, you pray to him? That'd be kind of ironic, right?
Yeah.
Well, look at the big hunk of gold that's actually at the Golden Nugget in Vegas, right? That thing looks like a Bigfoot imprint. It's so huge. And it was a guy in, I think, Australia, maybe New Zealand, that part of Australia, and he was plowing his field with a donkey pulling a plow and hit it. Hit it.
Tank.
That wasn't 15 miles under the surface. He hit it with a plow and a donkey.
He definitely screamed, "Mama,
Until
we eating
this-
pork chops tonight."
They will not put his name on there till this day. It's an undisclosed person that found that. He made sure that
I don't
nobody would
blame
ever
him.
know who he is.
If one day it's really hard to get in touch with me and everybody's like, I don't know, he just up and moves.
you for listening to the Dank Swamp Rebellion. Tune in Saturday for the exciting conclusion with RattlesnakeDre.